Hello and welcome back to Stephencministries. Pleased to have you here. Got a really incredible episode for you here today with Gina. Gina and I discuss her journey out of the New Age, working with energies, working with the sun, the moon, the law of attraction, and a bunch of other New Age modalities that she was involved in, and ultimately how this leads her into a very dark place where there's demonic activity in her house, glass is shattering, all kinds of awful things happening, and how Jesus saves her out of that and saves her family out of that too. It's really an incredible story. I know that you're going to be edified by it, so enjoy the podcast. Gina, I want to thank you
Okay.
so much for coming on the podcast, for being willing to share more about your story, more about your testimony. It's a fascinating one, and it's still developing, which is something that's really exciting. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
The,
Thank you for having me.
so the first thing that I wanted to do is just kind of contextualize your story, contextualize your testimony. And so I wanted to ask a little bit about your childhood. Did you kind of grow up in a religious family, or did you have sort of an early interest in the supernatural, or was that not really a part of your story?
Well, my family went to church every week or every Sunday, except for about when I was in fifth grade. I was a competitive gymnast. So during the competitive season, we stopped going. And then we just kind of got out of the habit. We never went back again. So from about fifth grade on, I didn't go to church ever. And also, those girls in gymnastics, I was recalling how we would have slumber parties. We would play with the Ouija board. And I remember it working. We all remember it like moving, and we were like, who's doing that? And it was working. And we also would have seances where we would try to summon the dead. We didn't know what we were doing, but we would still like try to do that. And I was just recalling that because even though it was silly, we didn't know what we were doing, that's still very dangerous. And then when I got to high school, my high school boyfriend was his mom was psychic, and we were very into the unknown. He kind of opened me up to the spiritual side of things that I didn't know about. We would like practice telepathy, that we would do that for fun. And so I was always drawn to it, like the unknown and the spiritual. And my high school boyfriend really did help open me up to that because his mom was psychic and his aunt was psychic. So it was talked about in a very like hush hush way. And back then there was no like Google or anything. We couldn't really look it up. But yeah, she was psychic, and that kind of opened me up to those concepts, and I was really fascinated by it. So, and of course I wasn't in church, so it could just run rampant and kind of take off,
Yeah, of course. So
those ideas.
it sounds like you were interested sort of in the supernatural, even more
Yeah.
so than a lot of young people at your age. And then that
Yes.
obviously
Yeah.
that develops into you actually developing an interest in sort of the new age movement. And I know, I think if I remember correctly, part of your story is that you kind of get into the law of attraction and manifestation, like a lot of people. Maybe you could speak a little bit to that. How did you
Yeah.
kind of get get introduced to the law of attraction?
Well, in my mid to late 20s, I worked in a cubicle, and there was nothing to like do all day. There was no podcast back then. So I would listen to headphones all day. And I remember I tapped into some like internet channel, like back before podcast, and it was Hay House Radio. And Hay House is the biggest new age publisher of books. And it was like every new age teacher had a show, and they would talk about their beliefs, and they would have people on their show. And like, so all day long, for like 5 years, I just listened to these new age gurus. And I developed a favorite one. His name was Dr. Wayne Dyer. And he was all about like your intention, like harnessing your intention. And that really always fascinated me. I really thought there was something to that. And I just kind of indoctrinated myself. And that seed really took root. And I did go in and out of church after that, but I could never really find Christ. I could never really, I just, the law of attraction, all that, like from those 5 years, that my heart and my mind was kind of like set on that. And I really wanted to see if it was real and if it worked. And eventually during COVID, I really kind of really started practicing, and I just wanted to find out, like if it's real, if it works. I was like, I'm going to figure it out. So, yeah. But those 5 years really, I just indoctrinated myself, I realize. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so since you were exposed to it, maybe you could kind of explain to us a little bit about like what is the law of attraction? And then as you started to practice it, did you see things kind of working, or did it disprove the law of attraction when you personally tried to make it work?
So the law of attraction is so there's like 12 universal laws, and I really loved studying all the universal laws. And I had my favorites. Like I feel like the law of attraction was kind of like the entryway that people like enter into it. And that's where you have to become the vibration of what you want to manifest. And I did that, but I quickly developed my favorite law was the law of assumption. And that's where you don't have to vibrate with that frequency. You just assume it's going to manifest, and you assume it so much that you kind of become that. You like it's always about changing your mindset. I was always changing my mindset. I was always trying to change the programming of my mind to become or to just assume I had whatever I wanted. Like I believed it so much. I was like hypnotizing myself. And yeah, but it did work. It really did. I really did manifest a lot of things at a price. Like at the more I hypnotized myself, the more detached I got from reality. My physical health took a hit. I couldn't really eat when I was in the New Age and the occult. I got kind of manic, and Satan will give you things, but he gives it to you at a price. And it was definitely at a price. But still, I was like, I didn't realize at the time that like my eyes had a veil over them, so I couldn't see the forest for the trees. Like I realized it was happening, but I thought it was happening. I don't know. I was just so kind of disconnected. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's like I was under a net or an invisible net that had me. Like, yeah.
No, I appreciate you highlighting that because I think that these kind of things are pitched to young people as just fun practices to try. I work at an op shop part
Right.
time, and the amount of witchcraft books that we have coming through, it's just unbelievable. The amount of books on the law of attraction, and so I think it's really
Right.
important, yeah, on shows like this to highlight that there's a dark side to that, and that the devil sort of wants his pound of flesh out of you if he's going to cooperate with you
Yes.
and give you things you want. He's certainly not
Yeah.
doing that out of generosity or the goodness of his heart. Um,
Right.
yeah, so it's so important. So thank you for sharing that. Another thing I know that you kind of get into, having listened to your full testimony, which I'll link below, is you start to work with the energies of the moon and of the sun too. Can you kind of explain to us how you got into that?
Yeah. So during COVID, when I kind of really just buckled down and really wanted to see what everything was about. I guess the moon, because I was following people on YouTube and on Instagram, it just seemed like all of a sudden, and in my spiritual community, like I developed a spiritual community and spiritual teachers I followed, and everyone did moon work. It's just part of what you did. And I always felt a connection to the moon. And I just quickly studied all that, figured out what you do. Like the moon's under a different zodiac sign every month. And so you work with that energy of that zodiac sign. And I had so many rituals I did, and I would like set out water, and I would put my intentions in the water and charge it in the full moon. Then I would drink the water and put it in my bath. And I know it's craziness, but it just became I'm very big. I really was big on rituals, and I had so many of them. I just kept adding them in. And the moon rituals was one of my most, like, what I consider to be the most powerful of all my rituals. And it would amplify whatever I wanted to do and manifest. I saved, like, the full moon was the crescendo of the manifestation, and like where I would draw the most power from it. And I also worked with the sun. I know a lot of people don't know that, but so in this daytime, I would go out and take walks and allow the sun like to upgrade my vibration or to raise it. I mean, I know it's just I don't know. So I just like work with both of the energies, and I really found ways to hone in on what energy that certain moon was of the month. And I developed a lot of rituals, and I was very dedicated to my rituals. Like even a couple of days before, I would get like nervous and not nervous, but like anxious because I couldn't wait, and I just wanted to make sure I was like using all of the moon's power, and I didn't want to like waste any of it. And yeah, so and a lot of weird stuff happened on my full moon rituals, like where I would be outside on my porch doing them, and like the moon would change, or my hands would just go into like certain mantras, and that was like I was summoning Hindu gods, which were demons, but I didn't know, like all kinds of weird stuff happened during my moon rituals. And I thought it was so cool at the time, like, oh my gosh, but now I realize how I was just getting more demons. Everything I did, I was picking up more like demonic attachments.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah.
totally. Were you identifying as a witch? Like, would you say you were practicing witchcraft, or like how did you kind of understand what you were getting involved in?
Um, I always considered the moon to be very inherently witchy. Like witches, because the veil is thinnest at the full moon, and so that's why witches like the full moons too, because the veil is thinnest, you can go in and out of the spiritual realm. And I did that. But I bucked up against identifying as a witch for a long time, but then I just kind of accepted it. And then eventually I embraced it. Like at the end, I really embraced it. And I thought it was very empowering. But for a long time, I didn't like it because I was like, I'm not doing spells. So I'm not a witch, but that's not what makes you a witch. It's like if are manipulating energy, and I was manipulating energy. So yeah, it was kind of I hated it at first, but I accepted it. And then I kind of loved it at the end.
That makes sense.
So
Was it giving you like a sense of like power and control? Is that kind of what you think? Like, why do you think a lot of young women are getting involved in this kind of stuff? Is it giving them a sense of control over their lives because they can manifest their intentions?
right.
Or yeah, what's going on here?
I think it's just branded as so empowering, it's so alluring. It gives you all the power instead of like releasing the power to the creator of the universe, to God, which we're supposed to. It gives the false illusion that we can create whatever life you want. So I was huge on creating my dream life. I never thought for 1 second what God wanted for me. I just knew what I wanted and I set about creating it. And with manifestation, they tell you can do that. And it's just so seductive and alluring. And the way it's branded is so, I don't even know. It's just like the cool, like, I don't know. It's like the spirituality for young women almost, like even songs and artists and crystals, just all the astrology. It's just all encompassing. It's like we're surrounded by it. And it's very seducing. I think it's very seductive. I mean, it's fascinating and it just gets you, like, you get sucked in,
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
seems.
I can see the appeal. I mean, this idea of like tapping into some ancient wisdom and feminine empowerment. It's interesting. Even the link between the occult and feminism is something I'm starting to see a bit more
Right.
like. Not to say that all feminists practice the occult, obviously, but this link between this narrative of like the persecuted witch gaining power and then fighting against men in the patriarchy. That's something that I've heard a
Right.
lot coming out in the show. Um, so,
Yes.
but what a lot of people don't
I hated
realize.
the
Sorry.
patriarchy. Like I loved that my brand of spirituality was very all about the feminine. And it was I hated the the patriarchal, what I thought, Christianity was patriarchal. I liked my brand of spirituality. I thought it was very, it was about the feminine. And yeah. So that does appeal to young women. I mean, it's counterfeit, but that's part of the appeal. But Satan counterfeits everything. And yeah, that's part of the allure of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And at some stage, you actually mentioned in your testimony that you kind of get involved in, I think you used the words like darker spirituality. And yeah, I know you didn't want to go too deep on that. Maybe you could explain it, whatever level you're comfortable with, obviously, kind of what that looked like for you, just to sort of highlight some of the dangers behind getting involved in this form of spirituality.
So I was in the occult at that time, and the occult to me meant I was just very dedicated to learning the hidden knowledge, all the hidden things of the universe, like the universal laws. And so I was very deep into learning all that, but I had never done spells like per se. And so I was on Pinterest, sitting on my couch one day, and they have spells on Pinterest. And I just thought, and it would, and then I won't say what it is, but it would have been measurable. And I was like, I just want to see, because I know it's all about your intention and that spirituality. And I don't do anything halfway. I'm very dedicated. I'm very all in when I do something. And so I was like, I just want to see. And it's so stupid. And I regret doing it, of course, but I just found this spell that was measurable. It was more like an intention spell. I was just sitting doing it on my phone. It didn't have ingredients or potions or anything. And I was doing it, and as I was doing it, right at the height of the most intention I was putting into my phone, there was no more intention I could give, a glass in my sink just burst. And my husband was in the kitchen. And so he was there because we now talk about, like, that, that glass broke and some other stuff was happening. And so when that happened, that scared me because he didn't know why it burst, but I did. I wasn't sure what made it burst. I thought that meant I did it with my mind. And then I was like, well, no, maybe a demon's there. And then I realized that the barrier, like some portal, I gave them legal rights. And so the unclean spirits and the demonic spirits entered my home because after that glass burst, stuff started happening all the time. That was the start of it. So things got very dark in my house after that, like very dark. Monitoring spirits were everywhere. My cat would chase them because they'd be out the side of my eye. And I'm like, did I just see that? And then my cat would chase it. So I knew it was real. Stuff was happening to my younger daughter because I would tell her that she was psychic, which I so regret, but she would hold glasses and they would burst in her hand. She would bleed. And there was knocks behind, like up in my room. I would go upstairs to go to bed and I would just try to relax. And behind my TV, there would be knocks on the wall, but it wasn't on the physical wall. It was like disembodied sounding. It was behind the wall, but it wasn't a physical knock. And that happened all the time. And so now I would go upstairs and I was scared. And then also I could just feel my house had an ominous feel. I was like scared. Like I was scared to walk in a dark hallway where now I just walk and I'm fine. But then I just felt like I was being watched or there was a darkness and so many other things happened. Like a tooth, my daughter lost a tooth and my husband witnessed a lot of this. I'm glad he did, or he'd just be like, "Oh, okay." But the tooth split apart and then half of it fell off, like flew off the shelf. So yeah, just and a lot of crazy stuff started happening from when I went a little bit darker and did like a real spell. And not like a white magic spell, but like I don't know. It wasn't white magic, but yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. It sort of reveals to you kind of what you're cooperating with. Like a lot of people don't realize when you get into this stuff that you're actually partnering with real
Right.
beings. Like it's not a game.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Hollywood makes people believe that this stuff's all made up and it's all fantasy, but I think that Hollywood's actually
Right.
imitating real life a lot of the time with these horror movies, with like the kinds of things that spirits do and, like paranormal
Yeah.
activity or whatever. Um, those kind of movies actually play on what happens to people in real life and real life accounts of hauntings. It's not
Right.
that
Right.
when people experience this stuff, they're experiencing it because they saw it in a movie. It's actually the other way around. So I
Right.
totally,
Right.
totally believe your account. And
Yeah.
I've had family members with some pretty extreme cases of haunting. And yeah, my in-laws actually, their house was haunted. Well, I
Right.
mean, I use the word haunted, but it was like there was demonic activity in the house. I think it's probably like a more accurate way to say it as a Christian. Until they got the deed and they owned the house, and then they prayed over it, and it all ceased immediately. And it was stuff,
Yes.
yeah, stuff similar to what you were saying, which is really interesting. Like the glasses bursting, there were like knocks on the doors, the doorbell would ring in a
Yes.
different tone, which is like it sounds like I'm recounting things from a
Mhm.
horror movie, but when you know somebody in real life and you can trust their character and their testimony and their
Yeah.
words, and they say this stuff is real, like it makes you think twice about it.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yes. 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 Yeah.
And
That's why I was
people,
glad my husband was there too, because I'm like, you know what happened. Because if
exactly.
I just said it, like, he would be okay. But yeah, he witnessed it. And my daughter too. I mean, it was happening to her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, what do you have to gain by like making something like that up? It makes absolutely no
Right.
sense. If anything, when
Right.
you come online and you share your testimony, and it involves supernatural things, you're kind of opening yourself up to criticism. So I think that's another thing that points to the fact that people coming and sharing these experiences are experiencing something genuine. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I appreciate you being open with all of that. So that was going to be my next question is what were the indications to you that your house was haunted? But there was certainly a lot of indications there. Um, And I know eventually sleep paralysis becomes a part of your story, like it does for a lot of people. Can you maybe speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. So during that time, I was in bed sleeping. Then I was awoke. I was awake. I couldn't move, and this dark black shadow, opaque, faceless figure, it just came upon me, and then started enveloping. It didn't have like arms or anything, but it just started to like squeeze me. And then one came behind me and was squeezing me, and I couldn't get away. It was like putting pressure on me. And I know I've since learned that that same entity has come to so many people. So many people have written me. Even people in my family have, two people have since said that they've had that same experience too, but they've never, really talked about it. But if you say Jesus's name and cry out to Jesus, it stops. But I didn't know that at the time. I was just trying to like will it away. Um, and it did eventually release, but I knew I knew it was because I had gone into the darker realm until I was messing with stuff I should not have been messing with. So I knew that I opened some like gateway, and I had brought it on myself. So it was very terrifying. I guess it's very common too, those black, tall, like shadow figures that like put pressure on you and just envelop you. And so it only happened once, but once was enough. That was all.
Yeah, once would be
Yeah.
enough. That'd be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine what that would be like. I've only experienced sleep paralysis as a child, and I know some people say that it's medical, but and maybe in some cases it is medical. I don't pretend to know everything, but
Yeah.
certainly if it's stopping at the name of Jesus, that indicates that for some people the experience isn't always medical in nature. Um,
Right. Right. Right.
yeah, maybe there's something supernatural going on there. And of course,
Yeah.
when we use Jesus's name, we don't want to just use it as like a talisman or something to just get us. It's not like a get out of jail free card. But
Right.
when we use Jesus' name and these experiences stop, I hope that it points people to the truth that Jesus is Lord over these
Yes. Right.
spirits.
Right. 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 Well, it's funny you say that because when my house was haunted, demonic, that's the right term. I was doing all the stuff the spiritual community was telling me to do. I was saging, I was smudging, I had like the salt everywhere, the selenite wands, everywhere. I would have black crystals because the black crystals are like the protective ones. I was doing everything I was supposed to do according to the spiritual community because they know that you can go in and out of the spiritual realm and that spirits and entities can be in your home, but according to them, some are good and some are bad. So they do all that to clear out the bad ones, but you could keep the good ones. So it's not, but so none of that was working. And then when I would study or like look for the solutions within the spiritual community, you cannot find Jesus's name in the spiritual community. Like my teachers would never say Jesus's name. If they said his name, they called him a ascended master. And so it was really actually, I know it's funny, you could just like Google it, but I was looking within the spiritual community for the answer. And it was very hard to find that Jesus's name was the answer with, in the spiritual community. That's just not, of course, that's what makes them flee. So of course you cannot find that. Like that's not well known. No one's going to say that because like you said, that means it's the truth. That's because it's the truth. Yeah. So, but I did find it and I did pray over my house and I kind of was using it as just to make it stop because I didn't leave the occult after that. It did stop. And but I didn't leave the occult or the new age, but that always bothered me. I always wondered like, does that mean that's the truth? And it just always, I would always circle back to it. Like if that cleared it out, doesn't that mean that's the truth? And it bothered me. It always bothered me, but I was just under that veil. Had such, my spiritual eyes were so closed and Satan had me under such a spell that I just couldn't put it together. It's like it was all right there, but I still couldn't figure it out. Like I was under like this net. That's how it feels, like an invisible net. And I just couldn't, it's like it was right there. And I still couldn't figure it out, but I would circle back to it. I would like, doesn't that mean it's the truth? And that's what that means because it is the truth. But I couldn't connect all the dots at the time.
Hey, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to connect all the dots without the Bible, without God's
Yeah.
word, which sort of puts everything into context and it helps you to sort of understand what's going on. Because there's a lot of elaborate
Mhm.
trickery going on, and it's been said so many times that it's almost like outdated advice. But yeah, Satan's been around a lot longer than we have, and he knows what buttons to push, and he knows based on individuals what will sort of keep them involved in this hamster wheel of the
Yes.
new age, as some people describe it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you're going up against a powerful enemy if you don't have Jesus on your side, and so I totally understand how you were still practicing the occult, even though you saw Jesus' name working for you. Um,
Right.
yeah, one of the other things that I wanted to ask you about is so you were telling your daughter that she's a psychic. Were you experiencing anything that you understood to be spiritual gifts? Because I kind of want to see how that changes for you when you come to Jesus. Um, so, yeah, did you feel like you had any spiritual gifts? Was that a part of your story at all?
Yeah, I did develop into being psychic. So going back to my high school boyfriend whose mom was a psychic, she used to tell me back then that that I had spiritual gifts and I need to figure out which ones they were and like hone in on them. And back then I was like, I don't know. Like I was interested and I heard her, but I don't know how I would do that. So, but then when I did become psychic, she had since passed away. I always wished I could have talked to her. Like, what did you mean? Like, what kind of, tell me about it. But so my spiritual gifts were I became claircognizant, where I would just know things without knowing how I knew them, and then they would be confirmed. And so like I developed, or I had a spirit team, like spirit guides, a spirit team that I worked with, and I would train them. So I trained them to do confirmations. And so when I would have a thought, or I would just know something, or I would hear something in my head, or see a vision, or um, whichever way it would work, because I had a lot of the like clairsentient, which is I always get chills and my head would tingle, which that still happens actually, but now it's in God's kingdom and it's the Holy Spirit. So that still happens, which kind of freaked me out at first, but a lot of people have told me that it's not like Satan counterfeits the spiritual gifts, or counterfeit. Um, yeah, so I had all these like confirmations that happen. I trained my watch to buzz and it would just kind of buzz. And then I would see numbers and then I would get, I'd get chills and it just all seemed so magical. It really did. And then I was also involved in the tarot community. I was learning tarot and they want you to do that because it really, it highlights your psychic gifts. So tarot was always confirming what I needed to know. I just could go on and just find out, whatever I wanted to know. And I would know it would be true because my head would tingle or I'd get chills and then my watch would buzz. And it just seemed so magical and like on and on. But I wasn't supposed to know that stuff. I didn't have the authority to know it. I wasn't supposed to, I mean, because it was demons giving me the information, which I didn't know at the time. But I mean, I had my third eye opened and my crown chakra opened, which I know people do chakra work, and I never did that. But in the new age, it's a workspace. And as you heal, the more you heal, the more you ascend. And as I would do this healing work, it was like I was ascending and I could feel my chakras opening. And as they opened, like my head, when it opened, my crown chakra, I felt my head tingling all the time. I had to wear hats. I got psychic information all the time when that happened. I couldn't control it. It just came in. And yeah, I liked it. I really that was part of why probably it kept me in the occult longer than I should have, because I didn't want to give up my spiritual gifts. I liked them, and even though I was under a spell and I was so mentally unstable, like manic and just very disconnected from reality. Like when I look at pictures, my old pictures, is such a darkness in my eyes. Um, there's just a darkness there, and but I couldn't recognize it when I was in it. I didn't know. I really didn't know how much it was harming me. And I mean, because all those demons were attached to me, giving me like doing my bidding for me. And yeah. And my daughter, I don't know, I just sensed something in her that she had psychic gifts and like so in your birth chart in astrology, there are like psychic placements, and she had tons. and I have tons. And and so she would always tell me, like, I feel like I just know things. I'm like, yes, that's good. Just go with it. And I kind of like took her under my wing privately away from my older daughter and my husband, who would not approve probably, and just kind of talked to her about it, told her how to like work with her gifts and what it would mean. And of course, since stuff was happening to her, like awful things. So, thank gosh, like she's out of it now too. All of my whole family knows Christ and we're covered by the blood of Jesus and everything has stopped. So, but it got pretty, I mean, it's just dangerous and I just couldn't see it for what it was. I just couldn't see it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, we're in this spiritual battle, and when we're involved in these practices, we're siding with the enemy. We're siding. It's like in World War Two. If you were siding with the Germans or you were spying, for the enemy, there was like the death penalty. It was like it's a very serious thing when you're in a battle and you're cooperating with the enemy. It's intense, and the Bible tells us that Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's his MO. That's what he's after. That's his goal. He's not here
Mhm.
to give you spiritual gifts or to enlighten you. And I'm just so
Right.
grateful to God to see that He's saved you out of that and saved you out of that deception. So yeah, maybe we can kind of
Yes.
come to that now. How did you sort of start to realize that what you were involved with was dangerous, and how did you come to faith in Jesus, which is my favorite part of every story?
Yeah. So when I would always, so after I prayed to Jesus in my house ceased to be demonic, well, then I just threw in Jesus's name all the time because I was like, oh, that works. Like part of me knew I needed Jesus. And I would pray to him for protection before tarot readings and before my man and like for everything. And that bothered me. I was like, I just would go on these walks and I'd be like, my heart felt so unsettled about it because I just felt like I didn't know the Bible. I didn't know, but I was like, is this like really wrong? I just kept thinking like my spirit was getting more disturbed. It just And so I would go on these walks and I would pray, like, I just want to know the truth. Can you just please, 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 please reveal the truth to me? And earnestly from my heart, I would search for God and tell him, like, please, I'm just trying to figure this out because I felt like I was under this net. I couldn't make sense of it. I was like getting more like in the goo or something. I just couldn't, I was getting deeper in, more disconnected. And so I always prayed that. And then I heard a few videos came across, and one of them was a Witch to Jesus testimony, and it really bothered me. I listened to it, but I didn't like it, and I felt sorry for her. Like, oh my gosh, like she's a Christian now. I'm so sad for her. Like she left the New Age, and she said everything you do, you're picking up demons, and I just remembered that, and it stuck with me. I like because I'd never heard that. And I was like, what? And I didn't believe her, and I thought it was so stupid, but it stuck with me and I couldn't get it out of my mind. And then a couple months later, another video came on. And in that video, this woman just said everything that God knew I needed to hear. And what I specifically needed to hear was you can't mix the holy and the profane. You cannot drink from the cup of God and the cup of demons. That's what I needed to hear because that's what I was doing. And God knew that. And when I heard that, it's just like I almost fell down to my knees because I was convicted so powerfully. And I knew it was the truth. I felt it was the truth. I felt God convicting me. And I had my answer. All those times I prayed on my walks for the truth, he gave me exactly the exact thing I needed to hear to reveal the truth to me. And so yeah, I knew that it was that Jesus was the truth. And then like it all came back to me about, Jesus's name is what clears out when you have demons in your house. And I just knew there was no doubt in my mind what the truth was. So, but after that happened, I was very spiritual. I had a lot of spiritual warfare, like from that moment on, tons of it. Like I don't even remember the next 3 weeks, but it's still worth it. I would not, even when I was going through it, I still knew I never want to go back to the occult. Like I just spent all this time getting rid of everything. The first thing I did, I got rid of all my occult stuff and got everything off my phone and just was like, yeah, I just the truth was revealed in such a powerful way. Like he really does. If you pray and ask him for the truth, he'll reveal it to you in the exact way you needed it. You need it. So my mom would be like, well, I would talk to you about it. Why didn't you listen to me? She's a Christian. And I was like, because I needed to hear the exact thing. God knew exactly what I needed to hear. And he did. He revealed the exact thing to me that I needed and like woke me up out of, I feel like I came out of a spell. And that second, the spell was broken off of me. And yeah.
That's powerful. And so there was a spiritual backlash for you too. That's the other thing I wanted to touch on, because a lot of people, when they come to Christ, things can get harder before they get easier, spiritually speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you maybe talk a little bit about that? Like, in what sense did you feel like there was an attack on you after you tried to come to repentance?
Well, so looking back on, I can't remember it. I only remember it in flashes. My whole family just felt like we were all falling apart. My husband and I have always had a great relationship, a great marriage. We were fighting all the time. He said I was saying stuff to him that I don't remember saying. I didn't eat for 3 weeks. I lost so much weight, just looked so bony, and just I was paralyzed by fear. So that's how Satan kept hold of me. He just kept me in fear. Like I just was so scared of everything. It's like I came out of this new age bliss, or what I thought was new age bliss, into like, I don't know. I can't even remember it, but I know I was fearful. I was not eating. My husband and I, my family, we were fighting. It was just like, it felt like I just felt like my life was falling apart. That's what it felt like. I didn't know it was spiritual warfare. I didn't know it could be that intense, but it was very intense. But like I said, even when I was going through it, I just thought, well, I guess this is how I have to live. I knew I didn't want to go back. I knew I was in the truth. So I just thought, I guess I just live like this. That's okay. But I didn't realize it was spiritual warfare because I didn't know to expect it. I didn't know it could be that intense. I didn't know it could affect my family members. Um, yeah, just I feel like it was like I was a ship on a stormy sea and I felt like I was going to sink. But now, like if I go through a little spiritual warfare here and there, I just know now I'm not going to sink. Satan wants me to think I'm going to sink,
Mm.
but back then I just felt like I was getting battered and I was just going to sink. And you know, you're not going to sink, but I didn't know it. I didn't know that at the time. Yeah. But now we talk about that, my family, because at the time we didn't know what was happening. It was just like everything was falling apart. My husband cried all the time. It was just terrible. I don't know. It's awful.
No, I can relate. I mean, having gone through spiritual warfare, having gone through dark seasons, even as a Christian, I totally understand where you're coming from. So thanks for your vulnerability there. What made it all worth it? What was Jesus in your life that you didn't have before? Like, what did Jesus give you that you didn't have before while you were in the New Age, um, that made you cling to Him despite the fact that things got harder for a while?
Well, in the new age, I was always working to heal like the darker aspects of myself that I didn't like if I could be like critical or negative and judgy. Like I was always trying to like become like all loving, and like my goal was to only radiate love because I believed whatever you put out, you got back. So my goal was to never think anything bad of anyone. Um and when I came to Christ, I got a new heart and a new spirit, and all that stuff I was always working towards, which it works a little bit in the new age, but I was always working. It's work. And then when I became born again, it was just like I have a new heart. And now everything, the stuff I was working for in the new age, now I am just, that's just who I am now. I didn't realize how transformative being reborn is. I feel like I'm literally a new person. And I have indescribable peace now. I feel like no matter what's going on outside of me, I feel God's peace. I feel it. And that's something I recognize in some of the Christians in my life. I always wanted that. And I was like, why can't I get that? Because in the new age, that's all you do is rituals and manifestations and affirmations and incantations to try, to get peace. And I would get it a little bit, but then it would slip away. And now it's like my foundation is built on rock. It's a firm foundation. The new age is sand. Um, Now everything feels, I'm stable. I'm eating. I'm not manic anymore. I'm more present for my children. Because now looking back, I was kind of out of my mind when I was in the New Age and occult. And yeah, now I have peace and joy, and I can't believe the transformation. I just can't, like, even like looking at my eyes and when I was in the occult, it's just like a different person, literally a different person. It's just crazy.
That's huge. And yeah, it's really, really awesome to hear. I'm so happy to hear that, Christ has done that work in your life. And the transformation that we're seeing now is, yeah, something that, you've said, even in emails that we've exchanged, that you want God to get all the glory for. Um, I think another thing that your story highlights is how important these videos are, because you, like a lot of people, come across videos online, and that kind of helps a lot of these different things to click for you. So if you're listening
Mhm.
to this now, maybe you'd consider liking, subscribing, sharing the video,
Mhm.
because it does help get Gina's story out to
Right.
far more people. And it really does impact people's lives, these videos, which is why, as annoying as it is, people ask you to do that, so that the video
Right.
can get out to more people, um,
Yes. Yeah.
to get the
Yeah.
word
God
out there.
works through the videos for sure. I mean, that's literally how it worked for me, were the videos. And yeah, it's very
And
powerful. Never know.
it is, yeah, no, it is definitely very powerful. One of the other questions that I had here for you as we sort of begin to wrap up was, what would you say to somebody who was in your position, right? Who's like getting involved in these practices, they like what they're seeing, they want to make man like, what human doesn't want the world to conform to their own ideas of what's good, and what
Right.
human doesn't want to control their own life in that way. What would you say to somebody that's starting to use the new age and sort of get interested in some of the same modalities that you were involved in?
I would say that they are going to open doors that shouldn't be opened. Even if it's like the positive, everything that's bringing the positive stuff is still under Satan, because if you're doing anything spiritual without Christ, it's demonic. Anything that's spiritual without Christ is demonic, because if you don't have the Son, you don't have the Father. So no matter how it's branded and twisted, it's not positive. You will have a price to pay for it. Everyone's price will be different. And if you feel like you don't have a price to pay, it is at the price of your soul, because what good is it to gain the whole world but then to lose your soul? And I just want everyone to know it's a dark path lit by a false light, whereas Christ is the true light. All of the New Age call is Satan. All of it is under it's Satan's kingdom, and it's a false light, and it's counterfeit, and it's like the shadow aspect of Christianity. It's like chasing your tail and keeping on a hamster wheel. And even like all the healing aspects, I thought, oh, it's everything is healing. Like that's just like I was gaslighting myself the whole time, because then I was reborn, and then like I didn't have to do all that anymore. And now it's just the more direct route. Jesus is the direct route to everything you're trying to accomplish. And instead of subverting his will and manifesting what you want, see what God's will for your life is, because it would be even better than you can imagine. And yeah, everything is subverting his will when you're manifesting or anything in the new age. And it's demonic. If you don't have Christ and you're doing something spiritual, it's demonic.
Amen. Yeah,
Yeah.
amen. I completely agree. Um, Yeah, we are bad at mastering our own lives. We're bad gods. I've found in my own life, when I've tried to chase everything that I want, it's always ended in disaster. But when you put God's will first for your life, you can really, not in a prosperity gospel type of way, but you can really experience blessing, and you can really experience closeness with Him,
Right.
that is
Right.
unmatched, and peace. When you surrender to His will, that's unmatched in the New Age. And so yeah, I echo that. Uh, I just want to end by asking you what the primary change is that you've noticed in your heart since becoming a Christian. You said you felt like you were born again, which is language, obviously,
Mhm.
that we see in scripture. It's something that I can relate to. Maybe you could
Mhm.
explain a little bit what you mean by that.
So I just feel the my inclinations, the way I react, everything, my behaviors, everything is different. Like so on my videos now, if I get like some like mean comments and stuff, it I pray for those people. The first thing I want to do is pray for them, and I have a loving spirit towards them, which in the new age I wouldn't have. I would be like, oh, I have to heal this because this bothers me. But it's just, it's my focus isn't on the worldly things anymore either. Like everything my values have shifted, and I see everything with different eyes. My family's bearing good fruit now. I can't believe in 4 months, like just the change in my children and my whole family. Um, we're going to church, and I get up early with my youngest daughter, and we start the day with prayer and like read the Bible together, and we snuggle up on the couch. And I was last year, I was sleeping in because I was up so late and like doing moon stuff, and I would just let my husband get up with the kids. So now it's like I'm present. My family's healing. I mean, we're just the contents of your heart is what kind of fruit you bear, and we're bearing good fruit. I can't believe the transformation even that God's made in my family, my children. And yeah, every day I'm just amazed. Like, and it's there for everyone. Like, it's a free gift, and everyone, I mean, if they're seeking in the new age, it's just they're going to keep chasing their tail because Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Like, it is definitely, he's just so good.
Amen. And yeah, he's blessed you. He's cleared house, with the demonic activity, with the practices you were involved in. He's given you peace. But the most important thing he gives us is salvation. It's the knowledge of him and who he is. And ultimately, we spend eternity with him. That's what we believe
Right.
as Christians. And so you
Mhm.
can't get past that. It's something that it's the meaning of life. Everyone's searching for what's the meaning of life. And as Christians, we have that, um, which is
Right.
huge. I
Amen.
mean, you can't overstate it.
Yes.
So, yeah, Gina, I want to wrap the recording up there. I want to respect your time and just say thanks so
Mhm.
much for coming on. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Um, I'm going to link everybody to your YouTube channel. Is that still the best place for people to find
Yes.
you and stay updated with what you're doing?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Awesome. So
And I
you'll
just
find
want to
that.
keep exposing darkness. So yeah.
Good on you. Yeah, I've been enjoying your videos. So you guys can find that link in the description box below for your convenience. Really easy to go find Gina there. Go give her a subscribe. Go like her videos. Check out her content. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So
Thank you.
thanks again, Gina, for coming on. I'll stop the recording there, and you and I can chat and pray a little bit afterwards. But thanks again for your
Okay,
time.
great. Thank you. Okay, thank you.